The success of the Medal of Honor series has been built on its amazing accuracy in capturing the feeling of combat in World War II. For the latest game in the series, Medal of Honor: Rising Sun, the player fights his way through the Pacific Theater as Marine Corporal Joseph Griffin. To ensure accuracy and compelling gameplay, the team from EA Los Angeles went to the ends of the earth to visit the sites of some of the most infamous locations of the war. These included the bridge over the River Kwai, Guadalcanal, Singapore, and Pearl Harbor.
There was a team of 6 of us, pretty much a representative from each of the various departments, that spent about 3 weeks traveling through almost every location that's in this game and actually interviewed people, went to museums, tried to collect as much data and information as we could so we can make the game authentic.
"18 days of grueling hell." It was one of the hardest trips I've ever been on in my life.
One of the most compelling levels in the game has Corporal Griffin trying to destroy the infamous bridge over the River Kwai by derailing a train traveling the span. There, the team discovered that the bridge was not exactly what they expected.
We started in Thailand, and we went out to Kanchanaburi, which is where the actual bridge over the River Kwai is. And we got a lot of not only good physical reference, but being there really gives you a sense of why these things are important.
Everyone has seen the movie, and if you see the movie, it looks like it's this massive bridge that spans this massive river, and it's just not the case. The bridge is tiny. There were instances where we're trying to walk along on the bridge, and you have to literally move over to the right-hand side to let a couple of people pass you, then move back over into the middle and walk. So it's this really, really narrow bridge to the point where we were almost scared of falling off of it in certain places. So it's just kind of put everything back in perspective for us when we were there.
During the war, Marines on the island of Guadalcanal were constantly bombarded by gun emplacements, which they named Pistol Pete. In the level by the same name, the player must destroy them in order to lead the assault on Henderson Field. Capturing the look, feel, and sound of this environment was very important to the team.
For me personally, just kind of stepping back from the crowd and walking through the island and recording stuff was really surreal. And you're in an environment where the insects are so loud that you can barely hear your feet hit crunchy dirt or grass. So we will make the sounds as real as possible, and we will add in everything from wind blowing and tree fronds blowing in your face to grass blowing, and that's literally how it was when we were in Guadalcanal. Totally different from anything else that I'd ever experienced recording-wise.
Those were definitely the most harrowing of jungles that we went through. It looked like it must have looked back during World War II. Tall grasses as tall as a man's head. We were trekking through that. Mud all over the place. It rained on us.
There were instances where we're walking along a path and one of our guides would tell us, be sure when you're walking around, to look on the ground. If there's open ground, you're sure to find something.
We went through and actually got to discover sites that were still there, that still had live rounds, some that actually still had bones in them.
And then we crested a hill and came up on a foxhole that they had dug out the day before for us, and there were probably about 25 live mortar rounds in this pit that we were able to just handle, pick up and look at. They were still live, and they were in this beautiful, pristine setting that had been the location for a huge battle about 60 years ago.
We had the most gorgeous cloud configurations with light streaming down. It's almost as if you could have imagined a host of angels coming down out of the clouds. And yet we're trying to imagine conducting warfare on this beautiful, beautiful paradise setting.
While on Guadalcanal, the team discovered that some of their designs had to be revised to match the actual scenery, including the placement of Pistol Pete.
We were visiting this field that they had littered hunks of airplanes and tanks and all the stuff that had been scattered around. They kind of put in one mini field in the jungle. And while we were there looking around, we looked off in the distance and there was this nice rolling green hill. And Chris Cross, the lead designer of the game, he pulled me aside and said, well, okay, right there, that's Pistol Pete, that hill. And our initial concepts and initial storyboarding of that level, it had shown the Pistol Pete Mountains as being very rocky, not very much vegetation on it whatsoever, and it turns out that that doesn't exist in Guadalcanal. So that right there is a one-to-one comparison of what's going on in the game.
One of the main goals of Medal of Honor Rising Sun is to find Yamashita's gold. And in Singapore, the player will need to use stealth to find crucial information leading to its capture.
We turned and looked to the side at the gutter system they had there. And, it was destroyed and had a unique feel to what you would imagine with a gutter system. And Chris and I just started talking. We're like, hey, that would be really cool to incorporate into the game, of like a stealth area or some place you had to sneak into or hide in.
I actually told Dan, our historical evaluator, hey, go jump in that. I want to get reference for how low you can go. Can you crawl through it? How far can we go around in this thing? And instantly sparked. Okay, that's a great stealth point.
And we had civilians just walking by and just looking at it, just thinking, what a bunch of idiots crawling around in our sewer system, But we definitely did revise some of our gameplay based off of what we saw there.
Just like in past installments of the Medal of Honor series, Rising Sun starts off with a frenetic beginning. The team's final destination is the spot of the game's beginning, and where in 1941 the United States was thrust into war.
We went to Pearl Harbor and we made contact with some people from the Navy Public Affairs Office, and they got us access to Ford Island, which is where the movie Pearl Harbor was shot. It was one of the places that were attacked during the invasion in World War II on December 7th. There was actually places on the asphalt on Ford Island where there were bullet strafing marks.
We went onto the Missouri, and being stationed on a ship is a lot different than you would think, because you always see submarine movies and they feel like they're huge and you can move around and play ping pong and crap like that, but it's really a tight environment, and trying to get that sort of claustrophobic feel and imagining being trapped below decks with bombs going off right on top of you. That's absolutely important to try and get into the game, that paranoia of getting trapped inside a tin can.
After their extended trip throughout the Pacific Theater, the team's next stop was Arizona, where they were recording sounds of both Japanese and American machine guns.
We're in Wickenburg, Arizona. Arizona is one of the states in our great nation that will allow our Second Amendment rights, the fact that we can keep and bear arms and we can come out to the desert out here where it's absolutely arid and no people are around, and we can fire what weapons we need to fire. This is the Lewis gun. This one happens to be in 30-06. Me.
The weapon list is kind of varying based on the suppliers that we have that can provide the weapons for us, but they encompass Allied handguns, rifles, submachine guns, all the way up to a 50mm water-cooled machine gun. And we'll basically spend 2 days out in the desert with the audio team, as well as a guy that works on special effects for us, a couple of character guys, and some animation people.
That water-cooled machine gun was the same type used to fend off Japanese Zeros during the attack on Pearl Harbor.
This is really cool. This is the water-cooled 50 caliber that we're going to be using on the deck of the California for the Pearl Harbor level. It took a lot of phone calls to get this one on set, so we're really excited to be out here filming this stuff today.
They also brought along 2 Japanese actors and some actual Marines who were dressed in period uniforms.
I'm aiming low on the door.
Those guys will be the ones firing the weapons, so when the animation team has to go back and choreograph that scene, they can just look at this video footage that we took in Arizona and put it together. And at the same time, the character team will look at all the lights and everything and see how it's reflecting. And the special effects guy will be able to see how the muzzle blast will appear and what the recoil will look like. And the audio team will be able to get an exact representation for how that weapon in particular sounds.
This is a U.S. rifle caliber 30 M1. Fires at a muzzle velocity of about 2,800 feet per second. There's a maximum effective range of
Supervising
about,
the entire operation was military consultant Captain Dale Dye.
I spent 21 years in the United States Marine Corps. When I retired from active service, I was a tremendous movie fan, in particular war movies. And what I found was that what I was seeing was not what I experienced. It wasn't the real thing. So I made up my mind that I was going to go to Hollywood and fix that. And so my thought was that just as we do in military training, you immerse the person in the lifestyle of a combat infantryman and then let him bring the truth to the screen. That was my theory. Everyone in Hollywood said, well, that's not necessary. It's called acting, Captain Dye.
Captain Dye went on to work with some of the biggest Hollywood directors.
We began to experiment with doing a first-person, really accurate World War II video game. When Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks and I were in England and Ireland doing Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg is a bit of a video game nut himself. And he brought me down there and he said, listen, we are going to design from the ground up a video game based on real-world World War II experiences.
Left-handed, never shot a gun right-handed before.
You never shot a what?
Weapon. Sorry, weapon.
Get over there. Just get down on your face.
Since the very beginning of the Medal of Honor series, Captain Dye has been taking his team through his infamous boot camp. And this game is no exception.
Time out. Yell when you go.
With every new crew that works on the Medal of Honor franchise, it's been kind of a tradition that they have to run through a bit of what I put actors through.
4, 5, 6, stop.
You just say, sir.
Sir.
And you say it after each count. Continue.
I want them to understand. I think that's part of building the legacy of Medal of Honor. I want them to suffer a little bit, not even close to what the people they're depicting suffer. But I want them to understand what it is to be a soldier, and then bring that to the game.
Ultimately, it is the process of working with Captain Dye and several other military consultants that help bring the game to life.
It's really great working with each and every one of our historical/military consultants because they understand the subject matter, that we're making a game, that we can only go so far into realism without impinging on the fun factor. Going through Guadalcanal, we're not going to give the player muddy socks and gangrene and, and malaria, right? But they try to fill us in on the feel of what's the historical significance of holding on to that island and the airstrip and the airfield. And to try and build that into our missions, it really makes a difference because even if 10% of people don't pay attention or even 80%, somebody in there is going to get that. And one of our big things is for both veterans and historical buffs to go, hey, that's exactly spot on, that's right, but still have a fun time playing the game.
We hung out with the production team to see how they've reinvented the process of making a game.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Electronic Arts Los Angeles. I'm Tarney Williams. I'm the senior producer on Medal of Honor Rising Sun. And today we're going to take you on a tour of the development team to meet some of the individuals who will be bringing this product to life. So let's go.
Storytelling is a very high priority for the Electronic Arts Los Angeles team, so they started looking towards the movie industry for help.
I've worked on many different feature films like Shrek and Prince of Egypt and The Grinch That Stole Christmas. When I came here, we were starting to brainstorm what Rising Sun was going to be. The first thing I brought to them was the idea of the step outline. And this is a method that many screenwriters use to get together with other people and think up the various beats or the various things you'd like to see happen in the level of the game. Open in Pearl Harbor. Maybe you're down and below in the ship Arizona. Maybe the ship is being destroyed. Maybe you go into shell shock. Maybe you're blown off the ship, etc., etc. So we would then arrange these beats to tell the story in the best way we could. And then what we would do is I would then take these beats and do a simple storyboard. For the gaming industry, this approach is something new because I think games have not been particularly concerned with story in the past. And so we've now employed this in great depth on Rising Sun. And I'm hopeful that Rising Sun will have a greater sense of drama, a greater sense of story, and more believable characters than any other interactive game.
Once the basic storyline is fleshed out, the game designers need to make sure there's plenty of action involved, and this is done by creating level maps.
In order to achieve the high production values that are one of the main targets we reach for with Medal of Honor Rising Sun, we spent a lot of time in pre-production doing animatics, storyboards, concept art, and then this is a level map that the designers will actually build up. In this particular one, it's called In Search of Yamashita's Gold, and where we walk through each of these areas, where the enemies are, how the different placements are going to be. We got the down plane here, a lot of jungle up through here, an uphill slope. And then really in here, we have one of the actual, getting into the temple itself and the events that happen inside the temple. I don't want to give a lot of that away right now, but it should be pretty amazing when it comes to fruition.
Now, if you stay on the raft, you would hit the same trigger and actually get the gator killing the guy.
The ideas for the level maps come from sandbox meetings, where the team literally acts out the level in a sandbox using army men and model planes.
I take input from everybody, try to be the last arbiter on gameplay, but we had a map design that went from river to road almost instantly, and the background artist working on it went, well, that's not really possible in the real world, and it's more visually interesting if we make it a dry creek bed that leads off from this, and then sort of incorporating that in and taking that path to the road as opposed to just starting it up right at water's edge. We should be able to just play it all like a director's script from our scripting stuff. It's just this, then pause this long, play this sound file, this, pause this long, pause it. So we should be able to use the same assets.
There's definitely a lot of back and forth between our artists and designers. Initially, the process is our sandboxing, where I'm there to say to the designer, well, visually, I don't know how we're going to pull this off. This isn't going to work. Or I can say, well, you know what? Here's a better idea. Why don't we do this? Because this might actually give you what you want, but look better at the same time.
That way we could get more bang for our buck. So I could set down a trigger every, 10 feet on the raft where he does this. Exactly.
We're going to join our Character Weeklies meeting here. This is a meeting in which the character team is able to show off the progress on their assets, and myself and our art director are able to give them feedback as to the direction and the progress they're going, and they can also get sign-off on those assets and move on to the next thing. The cockpit will be pushed back, like the glass canopy will be back, and he'll be outside, so he'll be firing at you with a pistol. Okay. And this is based on an actual event that happened.
I would say the authenticity factor for our game does make it difficult sometimes because, every once in a while you really want to pull out that artistic license, but then we do have to always bring it back down to whether or not this was authentic. There's always a fine line between what's fun, what's visually interesting, and what's authentic. And we at least do try to start from being accurate, because it's an important aspect of our game, and we definitely respect the fans who have responded to that. But beyond that, I still reserve my artistic license, and there are areas where I do like to push things, but it's never with the intent to spit in the face of accuracy.
The way they achieve that authenticity is by using the reference material that they've collected over the last several months.
My job on the trip was basically to act as a photographer. I walked around with a digital camera. I was really building a texture library. We've ended up building a library of probably thousands of texture shots from the pictures we took on that trip, and it's been very useful. We've been using them to texture the missions for the levels already.
We took video footage of sort of like the atmospheric effects, weather effects and things like that. What we've done with that material now is we've taken it and edited brief little clips of it that we're handing off to our engineering department, so that when we have a specific feature or effect that we're trying to go for, we can actually show them a piece of film that says, this is what we're trying to get at.
Long cylinder here, there's things sticking out of it, so I don't think you would just toss it and try to catch it. You would throw it and with both hands catch it.
With the animators, we try to animate a little bit hyper-realistic, a little bit more than a normal human can be. You can get motion capture up to a point, but there are some things that real humans can't do that we actually want to accomplish. Technically, you can hook somebody up to a slingshot rig and throw them against the wall, but we've got animators that can make that much more dramatic and who are experienced at doing that kind of thing. It's stretched realism as far as the way the animations work, and the performances are much more compelling.
ultimately, we've got a gigantic amount of assets and an incredible amount of technical achievement, in my opinion. That's the fun of game development. That is all rolled into one, as I said. Over a terabyte of raw assets that gets distilled down into what we consider to be Medal of Honor Rising Sun. And that has to be shoehorned onto a DVD and into a PlayStation that has suited us very nicely for delivering the special effects punch and the graphical visual quality that we're trying to achieve for creating this title that's going to add the next step to the Medal of Honor franchise.
Hope you've enjoyed your tour today inside the Medal of Honor Rising Sun team, and I hope you've been able to see some of the passion and professionalism that we put into bringing this game to life. Certainly hope you'll enjoy the game as much as we've enjoyed making it. Thank you very much.